Day 7 dawned on the yellow tribe with a blinding sun and oppressive heat. The air was thick and unmoving, and without a breeze or a decent meal in days, everyone was sluggish, irritable, and drained. Hunger gnawed at their stomachs, the rice rations almost gone and the fishing gear offering little success. Even the most driven among them were showing signs of fatigue. Karen's tone had gone from sarcastic to downright snippy, and Shego, usually eager to bicker, lay sprawled beneath a shelter in silence, glaring at the sky. Despite the heat, the game never paused. Karen continued to monitor interactions like a surveillance camera, silently calculating threat levels. She was beginning to see Jerry as a useful long-term ally, someone who shared her love of order and efficiency. Meanwhile, Jerry was more focused on holding the tribe together. With tensions high, he made a point of checking in with Shego, offering calm reassurance and allyship. Shego paused for a moment to think, but simply grunted in return, complaining about the heat interfering with her ability to think. Throughout the day stayed quiet. He watched, he learned, he took mental notes. In his mind, the moment he had to vote, he could make his move. But until then, better to let the others make a mess. He was already plotting his psychological warfare were the yellow tribe to lose immunity. Velma took a different approach. She knew the heat was getting to everyone, but she also understood that social bonds were crucial in a game like this. While collecting firewood with Tommy, she noticed he was quieter than usual. They paused under a tree to rest, the shade barely helping. "I miss my dog, Spike," Tommy said suddenly, his voice small. "When I had bad dreams, he always licked my face till I felt better." Velma looked at him, surprised by the depth of emotion in such a young kid. "I miss my dog, too," she said softly, "but even more, I miss my friends. Daphne, Shaggy, Fred. We've been solving mysteries together forever. It's weird not hearing them laugh, or argue about traps." Tommy looked up at her. "Do you think they miss you, too?" Velma blinked back tears. "Yeah. I think they do. I hope so." There was a quiet moment between them. Despite the age gap, they connected, two very different people feeling the same emptiness. It was a reminder of the human side of the game. These weren't just contestants, they were people missing home, loved ones, safety. Back at camp, the others lounged near the fire pit. Shego and Jerry had a brief exchange about food strategy, but the discussion fizzled quickly when it became clear no one had the energy to implement anything. Karen, ever practical, began scanning the trees for edible fruits, storing her findings away mentally for when a food crisis hit its peak. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across camp, there was a collective exhale. The day had tested them physically and emotionally, but in the quiet moments, under a tree or beside the fire, new bonds were formed, strategy simmered, and the game crept forward, slowly but surely, through the haze of heat and hunger. Day 7 at the Blue Tribe camp opened with blazing sun and not a cloud in sight. The previous night's sleep had been restless, with bugs, heat, and hunger gnawing at the players' patience. By mid-morning, the tribe members were scattered across the beach like wilted flowers, too drained to talk, too irritable to cooperate. Their rice supply was dangerously low, fishing had been largely unsuccessful, and coconuts were becoming harder to find. Tensions boiled over when Shang and Francine got into a heated argument while trying to repair the shelter's drooping roof. Shang had taken the lead, directing others with the precision of a soldier. Francine, however, wasn't in the mood to be bossed around. "You don't have to bark orders at me like I'm one of your recruits," Francine snapped, flinging a palm frond to the sand. "I'm just trying to keep this place functional," Shang replied, arms crossed. "We need structure or we'll fall apart. Maybe if you'd stop trying to run the tribe, people would actually want to work with you," she shot back, voice rising. Their shouting match drew the attention of the rest of the tribe. Lois intervened, trying to cool things down with calm reasoning, but the damage had been done. Francine stormed off to the beach, muttering about wannabe drill sergeants, while Shang retreated to the shade with clenched fists and silence. King Boo hovered, quite literally, at the edge of the chaos, observing everything. Though he appeared ghostly calm, his mind was always working. No one but him knew he still held the hidden immunity idol. He considered whether Francine and Shang's fight could fracture the tribe enough to give him room to maneuver strategically. If they were turning on each other, he wouldn't be a target. Ursula, too, was reading the tea leaves. She slinked her way over to Francine later in the afternoon and offered a soothing presence. "You're passionate," she cooed. "That's not a bad thing. Maybe the tribe needs someone less rigid. We can take him out pretty easily. Just say the word." Francine appreciated the validation, unaware that Ursula was playing both sides. She had whispered similar words to Shang that morning. Tigger, for once, wasn't bouncing. The oppressive heat had even drained his boundless energy. He spent most of the day lying in the shelter, occasionally muttering something about needing a snack or a nap. His absence from strategic talks made him less of a threat, but also kept him in the background, an unpredictable wild card. Later, as the sun dipped toward the horizon, the tribe gathered for a half-hearted attempt at conversation. The earlier argument still lingered in the air, and the vibe was strained. Some players were already recalculating loyalties, wondering if a tribe swap or merge might be coming soon, and how best to survive until then. The cracks in Blue Tribe's unity were becoming visible, and in a game like Survivor, even the smallest fracture could turn into a fault line. Day 7 rose over the Purple Tribe camp with a relentless sun beating down and a heavy silence hanging over the trio that remained: Muriel, Chica, and Cosmo. The once bustling tribe had been reduced to 3 after a chaotic string of tribal councils that left Skeletor, number 5, and most recently, Mufasa, out of the game. The most shocking part? Chica's bold move the night before, playing her hidden immunity idol and flipping the vote, blindsiding Mufasa in the process. The mood in camp was tense. Cosmo was visibly upset, pacing in circles and mumbling to himself. Mufasa had been his closest friend here, and Chica's play had completely blindsided him. He avoided both women for most of the morning, retreating to the shoreline to scheme stones and fume quietly. Muriel, ever the peacemaker, tried to keep spirits up. She gathered water and coaxed Chica into helping her weave a better roof for their shelter to block out the punishing sun. As they worked, Muriel finally spoke gently. "You did what you had to last night, love. Just be careful. When we're this few, every ripple is a wave." Chica nodded, focusing on keeping her systems from overheating. She knew the move had shifted the power dynamics in their favor, but it also put a target on her back. "I didn't want to do it," she admitted quietly, "but Mufasa wasn't with us. He would have cut us first chance he got. Something in me told me to play it, almost like a spirit possessed me to guide me." She stared into the camera flatly while explaining, then looked back to Muriel. "You and I are going all the way to the end. No one gets between us." Muriel smiled brightly and the two hugged, affirming not only their alliance, but a true friendship. As the sun climbed higher and their stomachs growled with hunger, Cosmo finally broke his silence. He confronted Chica directly. "You lied to me," he said sadly. "You told me it was Muriel going home. We were supposed to be a team." Chica met his gaze, calm but unflinching. "Plans changed," she explained. "You weren't the one at risk last night, I was. If I didn't play that idol, I'd be gone." Cosmo scoffed, and walked off again. Muriel sighed, caught between them. She later found Cosmo alone, curled in the shade of a tree, and sat beside him. "She may have surprised you, but she's still with us as a team," Muriel said. "And right now, we need to be together more than ever. We can't lose again." By evening, the heat finally gave way to a warm breeze, and the three sat around their fire in a fragile peace. The silence between Cosmo and Chica remained heavy, but unspoken understanding lingered beneath it. Only 3 players were left, and with the next challenge looming, each of them knew the endgame was fast approaching. As day 8 dawned hot and cloudless, the 3 tribes arrived at the challenge arena, where Jeff Probst laid out their next tribal immunity challenge. Each tribe would select 3 players to compete. Each competitor had to hold a rope connected to a bucket loaded with 50% of their body weight. If they let go, their bucket would crash to the ground and they'd be eliminated. The first tribe to have all 3 players drop out would lose immunity and go to tribal council. Yellow and Blue, having extra members, had to sit out 3 players each. Yellow tribe selected Shego, Velma, and Tommy, sitting out Karen, him, and Jerry. Blue tribe chose King Boo, Francine, and Shang, sitting out Lois, Ursula, and Tigger. Purple tribe, down to just Chica, Muriel, and Cosmo, had no choice. They were all in. The challenge began. Buckets were hoisted, ropes pulled taut. Immediately, sweat began to bead on foreheads, except Chica's. As an animatronic, her movements were unnaturally smooth, her grit perfect. She locked her mechanical limbs into place, stabilizers humming softly. The strain was immense on the others. Muriel closed her eyes and focused on her breathing, while Cosmo, not built for this kind of endurance, already looked overwhelmed. 10 minutes in, Cosmo groaned and slipped, his bucket crashing to the ground. Purple was down to 2. Across the lanes, Francine's arms gave way not long after. Blue tribe was also down to 2. Tommy, the smallest member of Yellow, faltered next, leaving Shego and Velma to carry the tribe's hopes. 25 minutes in, Muriel's grit began to tremble. She lasted a few more agonizing moments before releasing her rope. Purple's chances now rested solely on Chica. Muriel looked on nervously, but Chica didn't waver. "Grip locked. System stable," she intoned. Her servos held firm. She wasn't budging. Meanwhile, Velma's endurance gave out, followed by Shang for Blue. The final competitors were Shego, King Boo, and Chica. All 3 showed impressive resolve, but King Boo, floating eerily in place, finally drifted too far and lost control. His bucket dropped. Blue Tribe had just one left. Chica remained eerily still. Even Shego, tough as ever, was now trembling with effort. 45 minutes in, King Boo's face twisted with pain. He gave one last effort before his hand slipped. His bucket slammed to the ground. Blue was out. Jeff shouted, "Blue Tribe loses the challenge. They will be heading to Tribal Council tonight. Purple and Yellow, congratulations on your victories." Shego dropped her bucket with a sigh of relief, but Chica stood alone, unflinching. She had won victory for Purple for the first time all game. Her flawless performance earned gasps from both other tribes. After 3 straight losses, Purple Tribe had won their first immunity challenge, thanks entirely to Chica's robotic durability. Yellow Tribe had finished second, securing safety, while Blue Tribe, shocked by the outcome, would be headed to Tribal Council for the first time. Returning to camp after their 4th consecutive immunity win, the Yellow Tribe basked in a sense of stability. Spirits were high despite the scorching heat. Shego earned praise for her performance in the challenge, solidifying her spot as a physical asset. Tommy and Jerry took the opportunity to nap in the shelter while Karen cooked up a small ration of rice to keep morale up. Meanwhile, Velma and him took a quiet walk to the beach, subtly discussing the tribe dynamics. They noted that Karen and Jerry were talking more, while Shego's growing rapport with people could shift the balance. With the merge still a ways off, the tribe wanted to keep their numbers strong, but lines were beginning to form. Him suggests he monitor Shego while Velma monitor Tommy. Velma debated telling him about the idol, but ultimately decided it wasn't the right time to throw another variable into her equation. Little did Velma know that him would immediately tell Shego about their conversation. Him and Shego had formalized a final 2 deal, and their growing bond over their scheming had formed the basis of their friendship. Together they kept tabs on the rest of the tribe, and worked to subtly turn the other 4 against each other. Still, most of the day was spent resting, conserving energy, and enjoying the comfort of safety, something they were all starting to realize could disappear at any moment. Meanwhile, back at their camp, the Purple Tribe was buzzing with relief and excitement after finally securing their first immunity win. Chica, Muriel, and Cosmo celebrated with a small cheer, knowing they'd finally bought themselves a break from the chaos of Tribal Council. Muriel took the lead in cooking a celebratory portion of rice, while Cosmo attempted, and failed, to start a celebratory fireworks show with sticks and leaves, drawing laughter from the others. Chica, though quiet, felt a surge of pride. This win, after days of defeat, meant something. Still, beneath the surface, strategy brewed. Muriel and Chica, now a solidified duo, privately reaffirmed their trust and began speculating about a potential swap or merge. Cosmo, blissfully unaware, remained on the outs strategically, but his charm made him impossible to dislike. For the first time in days, the Purple camp felt light, no scrambling, no paranoia, just 3 tribemates enjoying a hard-earned win. The mood at the Blue Tribe camp was grim as they returned after their first immunity challenge loss. The searing heat of Day 8 had drained everyone, and losing the endurance-based challenge added a layer of emotional and strategic tension that was impossible to ignore. The reality of Tribal Council had finally arrived for Blue, and with 6 very different personalities, the game had officially begun for this group of players. Francine and Lois quickly disappeared into the jungle under the pretense of gathering firewood, using the alone time to talk strategy. They both agreed that Ursula was a wild card. Francine said sure, she's physically strong, but she's hard to read, and Ursula could easily flip come merge time. They floated her name as a potential target. Lois, always with a sarcastic edge, joked about not trusting someone who spent hours a day talking to eels. Meanwhile, Shang pulled King Boo and Tigger aside near the water well. "We need to stay strong," Shang said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Losing someone tonight means we need loyalty going forward. I think the 3 of us guys are a stronger unit than the women, but we could maybe pull in Lois, or even Francine if she'll calm down a bit." Tigger, bouncing slightly in place despite the heat, agreed, his energy unfazed but his eyes unusually serious. King Boo, floating silently, gave a slow nod, hiding the knowledge of the hidden immunity idol burning a hole in his metaphorical pocket. He wasn't ready to use it, but he knew tonight might stir the waters enough to make its presence relevant. Tensions escalated as Ursula returned from a solo walk and noticed Francine and Lois together again. Sensing she was on the outs, Ursula approached King Boo, her voice low and guarded. "They're after me," she said bluntly. "I just know it. But if we vote one of them, we can flip this tribe," Ursula said quickly, trying to hide her panic. King Boo didn't confirm or deny, only asking who she thought was the more dangerous of the 2. Ursula picked Francine without hesitation. Tigger, ever the social glue, tried to mediate the growing cracks. He spent time with Lois, sharing a light-hearted moment about missing his favorite snacks from the 100-acre wood. Lois, weary from the heat and now the paranoia, appreciated the levity, but she knew better than to trust everyone. Tigger's great, she later whispered to Shang, but he'll go wherever the wind blows. Shang nodded in agreement. He realized he may need a new plan. He pitched to Lois a pact between himself, her, and King Boo. Lois tentatively agreed, but wanted more time to lock in on a name for the vote. As the sun dipped lower, the plan seemed to be coalescing around targeting Ursula, with King Boo, Lois, Shang, and potentially Tigger forming a four. Ursula, however, wasn't going down quietly. She approached Shang with a new pitch: vote Francine out and take control of the tribe. She's got Lois wrapped around her finger, and if we don't split them now, they'll run this thing to the merge, she warned. She continued on saying, and don't even get me started on her attitude. One minute she's chirpy and humming happily, the next she's complaining about being told what to do. Catch her on a bad day and she'll flip to another alliance. Shang listened, torn. He had bonded with Francine over shared discipline and drive, but Ursula's logic was sound. He ran to Lois to finalize a plan before it was too late, but with all the chaos in camp, the vote was unclear. King Boo, watching all of this from a distance, was the biggest unknown in the game. With no one fully realizing how strategic or where he was able to float between conversations without drawing suspicion. Privately, he weighed his options: stick with the majority and blend in, or flip the vote and blindside someone, using the idol if necessary to protect himself. The idea of a flashy move tempted him. After all, what's a ghost king without a little drama? As the sky turned orange and the fire crackled to life, the tribe sat together for their final meal before tribal. Tigger attempted to lighten the mood with a short story about accidentally bouncing into a beehive, but even he could feel the weight in the air. Ursula kept her eyes sharp, trying to read every flicker of doubt. Lois and Francine exchanged nervous glances, while Shang remained stoic and unreadable. Despite the smiles and small talk, the lines had been drawn, but they were faint and shifting. Tonight's vote would be the first real test of loyalty, and no one felt safe. Whether the tribe would stay unified around a common target or fracture into chaos was still unknown. And in the shadows, King Boo held the biggest secret of all, one that could change everything if he chose to reveal it. Night fell thick and humid across the jungle as the Blue tribe stepped into the dimly lit clearing of tribal council. Their silhouettes passed beneath heavy vines and towering stone idols, each step slower than the last. This was new territory, their first taste of loss. Their first time facing the flame that decided who would stay, and who would vanish into the darkness. Francine walked ahead, shoulders squared but jaw tight. Lois followed with a flicker of doubt behind her otherwise composed face. Ursula slithered into place beside King Boo, eyes sharp. Tigger bounced lightly, nervously, unable to stay still. Shang brought up the rear, his spine straight, his mind unreadable. They lit their torches one by one, plunging them into the fire pit as instructed by Jeff Probst, who stood waiting with arms crossed. The fire hissed and flared. Welcome to Tribal Council, Jeff began, scanning the 6 contestants with a practiced, perceptive eye. For 7 days, you avoided this place. Tonight, that streak ends. Blue Tribe, how does it feel to be here for the first time? Francine cracked a wry smile. Honestly, Jeff, it's kind of a relief. Nothing bonds a group like group failure. Plus, I was dying for a change of scenery, she added, rolling her eyes toward the flickering flames. Some in the tribe chuckled. Ursula didn't. Jeff turned to her. Ursula, you don't seem as amused. I'm not, she said plainly. Her voice was low and measured, like smoke curling from beneath a closed door. Because it's easy to laugh when you're part of the group doing the talking all day. Harder when you're left on the outside looking in. That landed. A silence followed. Jeff shifted his attention. Lois, Ursula saying she feels on the outs. Is that fair? Lois raised a brow and crossed one leg over the other, unbothered. Everyone had the chance to connect. Jeff, if someone feels left out, it's because they didn't put the effort in. Simple as that. Ursula narrowed her eyes. King Boo, beside her, remained silent and still, his faintly glowing expression unreadable. Tigger, Jeff said, you're usually upbeat, but even you look rattled tonight. Tigger blinked rapidly. Oh, I am, Jeff. This is very Rattle-y. We've all been smiling and working together, but now we have to write down a name? That's scary stuff. Jeff tilted his head. So are you voting based on performance, trust, loyalty? What's guiding your decision? Yes, Tigger offered, shifting in his seat. Jeff smirked slightly, then looked to Shang. What about you? Do you feel confident tonight? Shang inhaled slowly, then exhaled. Confidence isn't really part of the equation at this point. What matters is keeping this tribe strong, mentally, physically, and strategically. One wrong vote could sink us. Jeff nodded. King Boo, how about you? You've been quiet all night. King Boo hovered slightly above the seat, his hands clasped, his form eerily serene. When he finally spoke, it was barely more than a whisper. Sometimes it's wiser to watch than to speak, he said, his voice echoing like wind through a tomb. Jeff let the words hang for a moment, then glanced down at the urn. Well, we'll see if that strategy pays off. It's time to vote. One by one the players voted, each of them visibly nervous in the voting booth. Even King Boo had a look of paranoia holding the pen in his ghostly hand. When the votes were cast, Jeff returned, arms heavy with the urn. If anyone has a hidden immunity idol and you want to play it, he said, now would be the time to do so. All eyes darted around briefly. King Boo had a moment of consideration, but ultimately stayed still. No movement. The idol stayed unused. Jeff gave a single nod. All right, I'll read the votes. First vote, Francine. She blinked but stayed composed. Second vote, Ursula. A slight smirk tugged at Ursula's lips. Third vote, Francine. Lois exhaled slowly, fingers tightening on her knees. Fourth vote, Ursula. The air thickened. 2 votes Francine. 2 votes Ursula. Fifth vote, Francine. Francine's jaw clenched. Her gaze darted toward Lois, toward Shang. Shang looked into the distance. Sixth and final vote, Francine. Jeff looked up. That's 4 votes Francine, 2 votes Ursula. Francine, that's enough. You need to bring me your torch. Lois's face dropped. Tigger looked down at his hands. Shang's lips pressed into a tight line. King Boo said nothing. Ursula tilted her head slightly, like a crocodile watching the water ripple. Francine stood slowly, lips curled in something between anger and amusement. Well, she said, placing her torch before Jeff. Guess I should have spent more time in the ocean talking to someone's fish friends. The only real friends she'll ever have anyway. Jeff snuffed her flame. The tribe has spoken. Francine turned. Her final glance was for Lois, a single look of betrayal, brief but sharp. Then she vanished into the jungle. Jeff faced the 5 remaining castaways. Your first tribal council, and your first fracture. The game is no longer theoretical. Grab your torches. Head back to camp. They rose in silence. Tigger lingered for a second, casting a glance back toward the fire. Lois looked stunned. Shang looked calm, but not unbothered. Ursula's walk was steady and self-satisfied. And King Boo floated wordlessly, his idol still hidden, and the power now squarely in his ghostly hands. One vote changed the tone of the Blue tribe, and they headed back to camp for the night, each trying to decide their best route forward. As the Blue tribe settled in for the night, each of their minds reflected on their tribal council. Lois didn't want to lose Francine, but when she found out where the votes were going she knew she couldn't write her name. She knew she had work to do to recover her social power. Ursula, on the other hand, was feeling more confident. The seeds she had been planting paid off, and the vote went her way. As Shang and Tigger tended the fire, King Boo slowly dozed off for the night, thinking of the many ways he could use his secret idol to wreak havoc. The vibe of the whole tribe had changed after the vote. Everyone was now in game mode, and each of them went to sleep for the night plotting their next move after such a brutal blindside.